Hey guys, Corey from Aquarium Co-op. Today I'm going to show you how to make these bucket filters. They run these koi totes here. You can see a link to this video. I'll put it right here on how to make these koi quarantine totes and things like that. Been getting a lot of questions on how do we make them, what's inside them, what are they doing. So stay tuned and we'll show you exactly how to make one. It costs like 50 bucks or less, and man, you will be happy with the results. So stay tuned. Today I'm going to show you how I make my bucket filters. Lots of you have asked, and today's that video. You basically need a bucket and a lid, and it's good if they match. This is just a bucket from Lowe's, as you can see. I think together they cost me 4 bucks. It doesn't have to be a screw-on lid or anything like that. We're not going to put this system under pressure, but you know, you do want a tight fit just in case something goes wrong. But let me show you how I make it. It's real simple, and we can put them together real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So first, you're going to need, what we're going to use, we're going to use a couple of bulkheads. And these are 1-inch bulkheads. And if you didn't have 1-inch bulkheads, you could use maybe 3/4, but you really want a 1-inch or maybe even larger bulkhead that's going to be on the bottom where the water comes out. The bulkhead that we're going to force water through with a pump can be much smaller, but for ease, a couple of 1-inch bulkheads work nice. And we're going to use a hole saw. You just got to get the right hole saw that's going to fit this. And the important part here is that we want to make sure when we drill these holes, they don't line up. Like, we don't want to drill through the center of this and the center of this. And I'll show you why later, because we need to use uplift and downlift tubes or downput tubes. So we're going to drill on the bottom. I tend to drill off to the side on one side, and I'm going to go ahead and just do that right now. Make sure you hit the bucket well. So that easy, you know, we're through that side. And then we're going to go ahead and install our bulkhead. This should be like a 10-minute project or something for you if you're not having to explain it on camera. The first one obviously is going to take you 20 minutes or more when you do it, just because you got to find all your parts and things like that. But so we just now insert this bulkhead through the bottom here, and we're going to put the nut on it. And you'll want to tighten this down fairly tight. I mean, it doesn't have to be crazy tight because it's going to sit over your tank anyway, and if it was to have a drip every 10 minutes, it's going to go right into the tank the way it was anyway. But I guess if you're going to plumb this remotely, you would want a super tight connection. But it's a gravity-fed system. So now my bucket obviously can't sit on something flat. It would have to sit, like, let's say on this table here, so that the bulkhead could go into the tank. Next, what we have to do is we need a system for water to enter the top of the aquarium. So, or not the aquarium, of the filter. So if we know we have water coming out the bottom here, we want water to come into the top. And so typically I just drill that in the center of the top. All right. So go ahead and, you know, get the piece of plastic out of your hole saw. We're just going to do what we did again. Went relatively quickly. This is definitely a do as I say, don't do as I do. I don't have a way to really hold this that well on camera in front of me, and so I suggest finding a better system to do this than by hand. I'm going to do it between my legs. Don't do this at home. And we're through it just like that. Nice clean hole. Super easy. Then we've got to, you know, put the bulkhead in. Not too hard. And you might notice here it's got some ribs. It's not that important that it be that flat of a surface, because this is where the water comes in. It's not a high pressure point. It's going to go in anyway. And this plastic's real flimsy, as you saw how fast I went through it, so it usually will conform if you torque it down with something. So on this one, I like to have the flat side on the top. I find it makes it a little easier for me because it doesn't stick up as high. So in that scenario, you want the gasket on the inside. And so what we do here, we drop it through. This is now the top. And on the inside, I'm going to put the gasket, even though this is irrelevant, but if you got to pick a side to put a gasket, if you already got one anyway, may as well do it there. Alright, so now we have got our bulkhead installed on the top. Alright, so now all we got to do, the water can come in the top. We've got our bulkhead there, that makes some sense. We've got our bulkhead on the bottom, that makes some sense. So water can come in and out. How do we make sure that we're going to get good flow through here? Because what could happen is the water could just come right in and it could straight shot right to the bottom. It could just go whoop and not hit any of the media we're going to put in there. So that's the offsets I'm talking about. And I've got to grab some tools and then I'm going to show you how we do that. Alright, so you can use any scrap PVC you have. It can be brand new PVC like I've got here. I highly recommend some PVC cutters for this task. Makes it pretty easy. I'll put a link down in the description on where you can buy that with the bulkheads and things like that. But basically, we want to attach a piece of PVC that goes down most of the way to the bucket. You can kind of just eyeball that. It doesn't have to be all the way to the bottom, but you don't want it to be 2 inches either. So I'm just going to cut a piece like this big, and we'll test fit it there. Alright, so now we've got a piece of PVC. I'm going to connect it into this bulkhead. And I don't bother gluing these connections in here because it's already inside the wet filter. And, you know, if I ever want to modify it, it makes it super easy. So now, as you can see here, if this was inside, you know, it would go down most of the way here. So what that's going to do is when the water comes in, it has to come all the way to the bottom of the bucket. Now you're thinking, okay, well, I thought we didn't want it to run out the bottom. Exactly. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut basically another piece of PVC. And this piece of PVC, we don't want it to be too high because if we build this piece of PVC and it comes all the way to the top here, the water level is going to ride right here. So maybe we have it 3/4 of the way up the bucket. And so yeah, you can kind of use this to measure it if you want. You go, okay, I want something a little smaller than this. And this is where some trial and error comes. We're going to choose one that's this tall. And if it's not right, you can cut another piece. PVC is real cheap. Alright, so now we can see, we're going to put a piece down at the bottom here. So now, in this filter, the water will come up to here, which is about 5 inches from the top roughly. And then we put this piece back into the top. So you can see here, it's actually hard to show you, but the water is going to come in through here, go to the bottom, so on the bottom of the bucket. Then the water has to rise through all the media to go down this pipe. And what that does, it's like a canister filter. A canister filter has the water either coming from the bottom of the canister or it comes down through the top, goes to the bottom, then has to rise up through the media, then back out the top. So now, we essentially have a bucket or a canister filter on the super cheap, non-pressurized, but both our ends. Then we have to get a way to fashion a pump and things like that. So that's the next step. Stay tuned. Alright, so now we need to get water to go physically through this filter we're making. I like to use the MJ-1200s by Cobalt. They're not fuel efficient, but efficient with wattage. They work really well. Yeah, they're a little more expensive, but they are the MJ-1200. It's been used for years and years and years and years. Not the new MJ, whatever, the new Maxi jet that doesn't work, but. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get out of the box here. And I recommend about 300 gallons per hour. That's what a MJ-1200 does. You can do more, but you don't want to overrun these 1-inch bulkheads. If you pump water in faster than it can drain, you're going to have a real problem on your hands. And so I recommend about 300 to 400 gallons per hour. We're going to go ahead and put an intake on here so it doesn't suck up any fish, because we're going to put this in the tank. And then we basically need to adapt this to pump water into here. So the way we're going to do that, we're going to use an elbow, and this one has a threaded coupling here, and we're going to use this barb. This is a 1/2 inch, 3/4 to 1/2 inch barb. This is 1 inch to 3/4 adapter there. I'm going to put a little bit of thread tape on it. Again, this isn't a high pressure connection. You don't even technically have to do this, but I just do because I've got some laying around. And we're just going to go ahead and put some on there. And then we're going to screw this in. And if you've got channel locks around, something to grip it with, you can get a better seal going on there. And you can use these to clamp down your bulkheads as well. I don't think you need to. So now, we're going to need a way to adapt it to the top of this bucket here. We're going to use a piece of PVC. So once again, grab our PVC cutters. We don't need a very long piece this time. I would say, 3 inches at most. Using some thin wall PVC, which is cheaper but harder to cut. Alright, so now all we've got to do, we got one side in here, take this lid off, and I just friction fit this. I just put it in there real tight, and because there's so little resistance, I don't have to glue it. You could glue this, I just don't glue them. You could though. So now we've got a way in to our bucket. Now we just got to go from the pump to the pump, which is right here, to that barb. Now, this is 5/8 tubing. It's just your standard tube you'd use to, let's say, gravel vacuum, stuff like that. You can buy it at a hardware store. You can buy it at your local fish store. But it's a little bit too big for the outlet of this. So what we need is, hose clamps. Now, if you haven't seen my other quick tip video, you should already own one of these. There's a whole set of hose clamps. But we need something to clamp that hose down with. And just so happens, I've already got it sitting around. Didn't have to go buy one today because I've got that kit. Check out the video that I put a link to. And all we're going to do is we're going to cinch that on there. So, you just get it not on your foot, but it's harder to do this and do it on camera. But so basically you just hold it. I'm going to flip this around to make it easier while on camera. Hold it tight, get the clamp where you need it, and just start clamping down on it. Now don't go so crazy tight with a drill like this that it breaks your plastic on here. That would be bad. But yeah, now we've got a real tight fit. It's not coming off. It's going to stay on there forever till I undo this clamp again. Then the other side, and this is probably a 6-foot piece of hose, something like that. You could go longer, shorter, depending on what your needs are. The other side is just going to go right to the nipple here. A 1/2 inch nipple and a 5/8 piece of tubing mates up really nice. Now the good thing is, if you ever need to rearrange this, you can take it apart technically. You can get this piece back out, not easily, but you can move it around. Once it's glued, it's never coming back apart again. So, but there we go. So now we've got a way to move the water through this unit. Now we just got to put a few last touches on it. So one of them, we got to fill with media. Now these are all bio rings, and I'll put a link to bio rings. They're not. These are all bioballs, and I'll put a link to bioballs in the description where you can buy them, that type of thing. And these come in little bags, which is nice. And we're just going to fill. You essentially are just filling this up to whatever will be covered in water. You know, so basically we need enough media to go into here. And you're going to say, well, that takes a lot of media. Yes, that's why I'm using a 5-gallon bucket on basically a koi pond and stuff like that. If you're going to run a really heavy stocked African cichlid tank, or maybe, you know, big South and Central Americans, koi, goldfish, all those types of things, this will handle a huge load. This is essentially, you know, for lack of a better way to put it, this is going to be like a $50 FX6. It's like the same size of media. You put a pump through there, and you basically are building an FX6. Yeah, it has to sit on top, and it says Lowe's on it instead of FX6, but you save a lot of money doing this, building your own. And so yeah, you fill it up with media. You can use bio rings, sponge filters, things like that. The other last step that I like to put on there, so the last thing that I like to do on my builds is I like to install an air line into it. Now that air line can be used to run a sponge filter, which I've done that, but what I really like to do is I like to put a never clog air stone in it. And you've probably seen these in my other videos, low back pressure, and what it's going to do is it's going to help create a current inside of there to help mix it up, as opposed to, we don't want it, in the filter world, what that we call is channeling. We don't want the water always going the same path. That channels and not all the media gets used. When you put an air stone with a random pattern in there where bubbles are raising up, it doesn't allow channeling. And so a never clog air stone, you can use a normal air stone, but you're going to have to change them all the time, because think of it this way. You're going to have a bunch of fish poop in there, it's going to clog up those air stones, and never clog won't clog. So that's nice. You can always use a sponge filter also, but all we got to do is drill a hole somewhere in the top here, and I just, you know, pick a spot, drill through it. Now you've got your spot. Grab yourself a piece of, you know, airline tubing at least as long as the bucket. You can always use a connecting piece later, but you get that on one side. We're going to thread it through here. And now when you have this full of media, you can cinch this down. It's not watertight, but it's still a tight fit. You cinch that down, you set this on top, and you get your air going. Now you've got it bubbling in there, you've got water flowing through it, and things like that. I'm going to finish filling this up with media, and then we're going to get it running, and I'll show you what it looks like. Alright guys, we're ready to set this filter up finally, and I'm going to touch on a couple of things. One, depending on how high your filter is going to sit from your pond or your fish tank or whatever, we see here we've got a tube that comes out of the bulkhead out of the bottom just to direct the water a little more. If I didn't have that tube, it might splash out. Like for instance, this one is kind of where I built the design from. This is a $100 overhead filter that is sold for ponds. It splashes a lot. There's no way to put a bulkhead there, and it actually gets a little bit wet, as you can see right here, because of the splashing. If I could make it go down a little more, I wouldn't have that problem. Now I want to show you guys what I'm talking about when I say channeling. In the filter, when you have channeling, like we've got channeling going on up here. So all the water is essentially coming out there, and it's not coming out over here almost at all. And we're watching the water channel, kind of, you can see it coming in the top left and leaving the top right, not even really utilizing that. That's just a really dirty, gunky filter. So that's why you typically would want to change that. And if I put some air stones in there, which you can't with that one, but if I somehow agitated it and got that going, I wouldn't have that problem. But over here in our design, we do have that. I don't have air hooked up to these ones currently, just because this room doesn't have it yet. But this is, one of the first informations, and I'm going to try not to fall into these ponds as I show you a little bit about it, which I have to lean over here and open them up. But you can kind of see it's the same design. We've got the pipe going down, we've got bioballs in there, things are happening, all good things. I do want to plug this one in here for you so you can see it start to run and just go, yep, we built it, it worked, it took 10 minutes. But I'm going to have to reach really far over here and switch camera hands and move this filter actually so I can plug it in. It's one of those don't drop the camera in the water scenarios. There we go. We've got water flowing, and give it like 20 seconds here, and this one will be getting twice as much filtration. We're just seeding this one for when we set up more koi totes like this, or I can put it on the one down there when I get power on the wall there. So while we're waiting for that to fill with water, you can actually run them silent as well. They just don't add as much oxygen. So like this one over here, we've got the outlet tube underneath the water, and so it's running much quieter. That being said, there's lots of film on the top of this water because nothing's breaking the surface. And if I lean way over here again, and I open this up, you can see again, we've got, try not to block the light here, but we've got our tube, one goes down, one comes up, running, relatively clean in there. That's good. We could flush that out if we needed to, but it sounds like our other one's back to letting some water out. So yeah, now we've got them both going here. We can see that's the one we just built. Lots of surface agitation, and we've got to now have a 5-gallon bucket full of bioballs and media for 50 bucks. Like that's the best filter you can make. It takes 20 minutes of your time. You got to go buy some parts, but you can see how well these are, and hopefully that's answered your guys' questions. You've been wanting to see it. That's how they're built. Subscribe, like, check out all our other videos. We do stuff like this all the time. Lots of DIY projects, things like that. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button already. Share this with your local friends and forums and things like that. And we'll see you in the next video. We appreciate it.